Hey, it's Scott Petrak with another episode of the Browns Zone Coverage Podcast. The Browns opened organized team activities, otherwise known as OTAs, on Tuesday, and the media were allowed to watch Wednesday. So it was our first chance to see all four quarterbacks on the field at the same time. Here to break it all down is Dave Chudowsky of the WKYC Morning News. Hey, Chud.
God, I was sitting around yesterday. Well, I'm never sitting around really, but while doing a million things anyway. And I was like, man, I feel like I'm missing something. Something is missing in my life that I didn't do last week. And I feel like it's not happening this week. And then sure enough, your text came. Hey, you want to do a pod? They had OTAs. I'm like, there it is.
There it
There it
is.
is. The podcast. I knew I was missing something. So I feel like full again after a week off. I appreciate that. Um, but I'm ready to go here. And I guess, there's a couple different ways we can start this, but I just want to get right into the quarterbacks. And what was it like being there yesterday for OTAs with all four guys? I mean, that's what everyone wants to talk about. It's all you hear.
Right. Yeah, it was cool. It was interesting. And then you walk away going, okay, what exactly did we learn? Because it is May, right? It is May, it is OTAs. I'll start with this. The way Kevin Stefanski and the organization are conducting practice now is different, and the goal is to get more reps for these quarterbacks. So they do their normal, anybody's been to practice, they do the normal individual stuff where it's just quarterbacks throwing, and then it's quarterbacks who throw to, receivers and running backs and tight ends. Then they do just offense with the defense on the other side of the field. And then they do offense versus defense. So it's 11 on 11. And it's just one field, everybody there. And they used to just keep it on one field. And they would do 7-on-7s in red zone and all that on one field, one drill at a time. But because they're trying to get four quarterbacks reps, after the 11 on 11, they split. So when they did 7-on-7 drills and red zone drills, they had two different fields going. So they had Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett on one field, and Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders on the other field. So you kind of, as a reporter, you kind of have to split your attention. You're shifting back and forth, but okay, what field am I aligned on? Who am I taking video of? What's going on over there? Um, I spent, and because you saw the 11 on 11s together, and that was mostly the veterans taking the reps there, I decided to watch more of the rookies when they split up. Next week, when we're back out at OTAs, I'll probably go watch more of the veterans, assuming they split the reps the same way. And who knows, because Kevin Stefanski says they're changing that up every day. But it's interesting because Stefanski just hasn't done that. Typically, it's been once you get to the team and the 7-on-7s, it's one field. So that's where everybody's attention is. But it makes sense given the four guys. You're trying to get as many reps to all those guys as you can. You're trying to, and if you just did the one field, it would be lopsided toward the veterans because those guys would go first, and then the rookies aren't getting enough reps. So that's the goal of this. It makes perfect sense. It just looks different from a, I think it looks different to Stefanski too, but it certainly looks different from us observers because it's not what we've seen over the last 5 years. So you have that aspect of it. And then, even though Kevin Stefanski keeps telling us not to pay attention to this, you have to. You have to at least note it, whether or not we can argue about the importance of it. But so when they do the first just offense drill, it's Kenny Pickett went first. But when they go to the first 11 on 11 drill, it was Joe Flacco followed by Kenny Pickett. Then when they did the next 11 on 11 drill, it was Pickett and then Dylan Gabriel, the rookie. So it's not like one guy's getting all the reps with the starters, which you would expect with a wide open competition. It is noteworthy that Shadur Sanders did not take any reps in the 11 on 11s. Now, when they went to 7-on-7s in the red zone, like I said on the split fields, he did. I happened to be right behind that one end zone he was throwing to in the 7-on-7s, or in the red zone 7-on-7s. Do a couple of nice touchdown passes back to back into the corners. He continues to show good touch and good accuracy, which is what the scouting report said on him at Colorado. That's what he did well. He might be the most accurate quarterback in the draft class. So you continue to see that, but based on one practice, and I don't want to read too much into it, you would say he's fourth on the depth chart, which you don't have an official depth chart, but you'd say that, which makes sense because you have two veterans, and then you have the quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, who's taken 2 rounds ahead of him, who the Browns clearly like better because that's the guy they drafted first. So I don't think it's a surprise. We'll continue to monitor, obviously, every time we're out there to see if Sanders gets more reps, if he can gain any ground on the other 3 guys, or even at least Dylan Gabriel. So then where does that shift, where the rookie fits with the veterans? So you saw that Joe Flacco still throws it as well as he ever did, which is amazing. He's 40 years old. And maybe it's not as well as he ever did, but he still throws it great. I think he throws it better than the other 3 quarterbacks, which is not necessarily a knock on them. It just speaks to how well he throws it. And then you have Kenny Pickett, and we'll get into this more, but I think he's a favorite to win the job. How does he look? And you didn't see a ton yesterday. The pass rush I thought was in the quarterback's face too much, which made it hard on him. In fact, there's one play with defensive end Joe Tryon-Shoyinka came through and actually kind of shoved Pickett with both hands, which got all the coaches upset. Stefanski had pulled Tryon-Shoyinka to the side and said, we can't do that. It's OTAs. You're never supposed to hit the quarterback, right? I think he just was almost surprised he came through so clean. It's not like he hit him physically, but he touched him with both hands, which is a no-no. So you saw Pickett. He throws it fine. I need to see more of that. It's the first time outside of a game that I've seen him throw live. It looked like the ball came out of his hand fine. He does wear gloves. There's so much been made of his small hands. The weather was a little misty, but he always wears gloves. So you saw that again just to help him compensate for the small hands. So I want to see him throw the ball more, but he looked fine. We talked to him and Flacco afterward. They both came across well. So it was an interesting first day, Chud.
So Stefanski's saying don't read into anything, but that's what everyone's going to do. You mentioned you kind of have to. So just give me a rundown how I don't necessarily want to, well, I guess it has to be a mixture of what they are telling us, what you see, and what you believe. But I want you to give me Petrak's 1 through 4, brought to you by Petrak's Pebbles, everyone's favorite breakfast cereal.
Okay. Do you want my 1 through 4 who I think it should be, or what I think, like if you ask Kevin Stefanski on his moment, his depth chart or my depth chart?
Basically where you think it really is at. Like, okay. All right. So like right now, Shedeur is getting the least amount of reps or whatever. But I mean, that I think if they just threw him in there and he started 11 on 11, I mean, that would be huge news throughout the entire NFL, national TV, right? That would have been a what you'd call an S storm, right?
No doubt.
That, they're not going to do that right off the bat. But do you think it might lead up to that? Like, I just want you to basically put all factors into play, what they're selling us, what you believe, what you think. So not necessarily yours, but just kind of where you think it's at.
I got you. All right. I think it's Kenny Pickett as the favorite to be the starter. And I say that because he turns 27 next week. So he's still young. He's a former first-round pick. So that leads you to believe there is big upside. The Browns have been adamant that there's untapped potential from what he showed in his couple of years with Pittsburgh and then last year in Philly when he's basically a backup. And the backdrop for all of this is they need to find their long-term answer at quarterback. Right? That's clear. We know it's not going to be Deshaun Watson. So who's going to be that long-term answer? And they need to find that out. And Kenny Pickett is the best combination of experience and youth and upside in their estimation. So if you have that guy who has a chance to be the long-term answer, then I think they want him to win this job, and they believe he can win this job and be successful. And that's a contrast to Joe Flacco, who I think probably gives them the best chance to win the opener, given his experience, given the way he throws the ball, given how successful he was here in 2023 in Kevin Stefanski's system. but Joe Flacco's 40. So if you're looking at this long term, which the Browns are, at least partially long term, then it leads me to Kenny Pickett. I would think it gets a little fuzzier after that because I don't know if they want a rookie to start week 1. So I would go Flacco number 2. But I think it's close because Dylan Gabriel played 6 years in college. He's as polished as you get coming out of college, coming into the NFL draft. The question for him will be, can he succeed at 5'11", 205 pounds? And that's not going to change a year from now. So I think it's close between Gabriel and Flacco as far as who's second in line to be the starter. And if we talk about looking long term, can Dylan Gabriel be the long term answer? We know they like him more than probably any other team in the NFL because they drafted him. They took him higher than I think a lot of people expected him to be chosen. So can he be the guy? And there's also pressure to find out sooner rather than later because they're going to have 2 first-round picks in 2026 and might need to go find their quarterback if they don't believe in any of these younger guys. So let's go Pickett. Let's go Pickett, Gabriel, Flacco, Sanders. And I just think Sanders is viewed as a little bit of a bonus because he's a 5th-round pick, because they didn't expect him to fall that far. I think there's a belief around the league that it might take him a while in the NFL. You know, they didn't run complex offenses at Jackson State and Colorado, and that usually takes a quarterback a while to adjust in the league. So while I like Sanders more than Gabriel, I don't think the Browns do. At least they didn't before the draft. And I think Sanders is going to have to close the gap in order to get in that discussion.
So a couple things I want to hit on with the rookies real quick. Did you see live Gabriel's ball get knocked down by Mason Graham?
I saw one of them. I heard there were 2, and I saw one of them. And the one I saw was 3-step drop, tries to get the ball out. Graham gets quick pressure, bats it down. And you have to talk about that. I'm glad you brought it up, Chud. It's one of the notes I read we got to talk about.
Hey,
right?
when I saw it on social media, I laughed and thought of you because I know how you feel about that. And I just laughed because I'm thinking this is a concern in NFL games, and we already saw it in an OTA practice.
Yes. Now, I think you have to be careful. I think you have to be careful when you got a short quarterback, what kind of plays you can call. And the 3-step drop with a lot of bodies around, there's not as much space for him to loft the ball over. And I'm sure Kevin Stefanski knows that, but this is a play they wanted to run. They ran it, and it didn't work out. And maybe you have to adjust if Dylan Gabriel winds up being your starting quarterback. Now, there's a stat out there that he didn't have a bunch of balls batted down in college. And I know teams do the research on that, especially for a short quarterback. So I don't think that was a concern for the team when they got him, but we'll see if that becomes a concern. And again, it's an OTA practice. It's only 2 batted balls, but that will be something to watch, Chud, because you know how I have serious concerns about a quarterback that size, and he's going to have to prove to me and the league that he can succeed at that size, succeed with bigger bodies around him, and the bodies do get bigger from college to the NFL. They get quicker. The pocket gets smaller. All those things are real. Doesn't mean he can't have success. Doesn't mean he wasn't good in those situations in college. With the pocket coming around him, he has good pocket presence. He made plenty of throws, but can you do it in the step up in class? And that's a huge question that still needs to be answered. And again, it's not the end of the world, but 2 batted balls is something that we're going to continue to note because he's 5'11".
Mm-hmm. So listening to Stefanski, Flacco, Pickett, just whoever had a chance to talk about Shedeur, seemed like everything's positive so far. Am I hearing that correctly? Like everyone's got positive things to say about his attitude?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, Chud. And the Browns have never wavered on them liking Shadur Sanders as a person. Now, I know that contradicts some of the reporting. I think it contradicts how some of the other teams felt, NFL teams felt about Shadur during the run up to the draft. But, the Browns had the number 2 pick, so, I think he always thought they were a team or a viable option to choose him. I think they had a good relationship. The Browns have a good relationship with Deion Sanders, his dad. So that's never been an issue. And then, yeah, you throw him around Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. And Joe Flacco said he makes me smile like once a week in a meeting, just with his personality. He said he's asking him about his footwork. So there is this, I don't know if larger than life is the right way to say it, but there is this extra that comes with Shadur Sanders because of the family name, because of, he records music and he's got millions of followers on social media. So there is something extra, but I think that disappears or at least dissipates in the meeting rooms. When you're in the quarterback room, nobody cares. Joe Flacco doesn't care. Kenny Pickett doesn't care. And I don't think, and I've only been around Shadur, 2 or 3 times. I don't think he carries himself like that on the football field or in the locker room or in the meeting room. I don't. He doesn't come across like that to me. So everybody's got good reports about him. And again, I think he's played well in the limited time, like the 2 rookie minicamp practices, and then yesterday in limited opportunities, he throws it well. He just does. That's one of the things he does. Not the biggest arm, but the accuracy, the ball placement, right, which is a little different than completion percentage, is where he puts the ball. It's really good. So I think he's got a big upside. I just don't know when we're going to see him in real life. And again, it's way too early. But I think there is a little bit of a learning curve for Shadur.
How many practices are this week? Is there 3?
Yeah, 3. We get to see one.
One.
3 more next week. We get to see one. Then it's mini camp the week after, and we get to see all 3.
Okay, and that maybe we'll hear from Shadur next week then, maybe?
Yeah, that's interesting. I was wondering that myself. They usually don't give us a whole lot of lead time on that. I'm sure we'll talk to him one more time before, I would hope, we talk to him one more time before the break, before training camp. So I don't know if it'll be next week or during minicamp.
Minicamp, okay, and minicamp's mandatory.
Correct.
All right, so that leads us into our next topic.
I got one more quarterback thing for you real quick.
Oh, one more quarterback.
One more quarterback. If people are on social media, and this is not a shot at anybody, but people are keeping track of the quarterback stats. And I just wanted to say there's a danger to keeping stats at practice. There's a danger to keeping stats at OTAs. I understand it. I understand there's a lot of interest. I understand the 4 quarterbacks. So I'm not saying there's no value in it, but there's no context when you just see the stats. So you might not know that Shadur's throws came mostly in the red zone. So if he throws for 3 touchdowns, it's a little slanted because he's not going full field. You don't know if a play would have been a sack, but there aren't sacks because you can't get to the quarterback, right? You don't know if it took 8 seconds to deliver the ball. Are we really going to count that as a completion? Those are the kind of things the coaches take into consideration when they're grading each play like they do. So I get it, and it's a quick snapshot, and I'm not going to say it's wrong, and I'm sure the numbers are correct. I just think there needs to be more context, and it's dangerous just to, at the end, go, well, here's the stats. Quarterback C should get the job. I just don't believe in that.
Well, notice I didn't ask you about that, and also one of the things I asked you was to give me your opinion based on what you saw, because that's what matters more to me, right? So I guess what I'm wondering is this other media members doing this, Scott?
Yes.
Or
yes.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm saying it is because it got some run on NFL Network.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it's not just, I'm not picking on anybody. I just know it's out there, and it's a chance it becomes a narrative. And I just, And I felt strongly enough to say, take those with a grain of salt, is my lasting point, I suppose.
Well, I'll be honest. I even hate asking you um, to rank the quarterbacks. But I feel like we have to because that's what everyone's doing.
Sure.
That's what everyone talks about, and that's what people want to hear. But
Yeah,
I don't know how much it really means right now.
I agree with that. And, and Joe Flacco, I thought, had an interesting quote um, where he said he loves being here for OTAs. The first couple phases where, it's no offense versus defense. He goes, that he could take it or leave it. He shows up because there's some bonding that goes on and, team bonding. But he goes, he really loves the OTAs. It gets back to being football. He said, but we can have a legitimate discussion how important these are. Because when you get to training camp, that's when things really count. It almost feels like a new slate. So, yeah, you have to take all this in context with a grain of salt. Now, I do think there's added importance, and not greatly added importance, but some added importance to what we're watching over the next 3 weeks, given the four-man quarterback competition and the fact that you can't wait until September 1st to make a decision on who your starter is going to be. Right? They play the Bengals, I want to say September 7th. You need to get ready. Your quarterback needs to be in place a couple of weeks before that to really go full speed ahead to get ready to play the Bengals and Joe Burrow. So there is a time crunch here. And so these practices aren't the end all be all, but they do matter to some degree.
Yeah, Scott, you forgot who you're covering. All right, there's no guarantee on that. No, I know you're right. All right, so back to what I was going to say
Yes.
before. Minicamp is mandatory, correct?
Yep.
OTAs are not. That's the other lead story. Myles Garrett, not in Berea. Of course, he's in Japan.
Yes, he is. Now, if you're going to skip, I think it's a better excuse that you're in Japan than you're like in Middlebury Heights and just, I'm not going to come over to practice today.
True.
Right? And there's so many layers to this. And to me, the bottom line is Myles Garrett does not need to be at 3 practices in May for him to get 16 sacks in the fall. He just doesn't. The guy works out like crazy in the offseason. He's in great shape when he shows up. He plays incredibly hard when he's here. And if we're going to talk about like these practices matter for the quarterbacks, they don't matter for the defensive end. Like you can't really put hands on there's no one-on-one drills between offense and defense. There's not a lot of contact allowed. Like it's supposed to be no contact. So he's not getting he's not getting any really good one-on-one reps. He could do the individual work, which he's probably doing in Japan anyway. So I think for Myles Garrett, on the field, it doesn't matter at all. You can make an argument that as a leader, as a guy that just signed this giant contract extension, that it would be better for him to be here. And I'll listen to that, and I'm not going to argue with that. I just don't think it matters very much. In a perfect world, is he here? Yes. Would Kevin Stefanski love all those guys to be here? Yes. I don't think it affects how Myles Garrett's going to play on game day. And I think he's built up so much. I'm searching for the right word. So much credit.
Yes.
Right? With his teammates that it doesn't matter that he's not here for these practices. We'll see if he's here next week. I know he's been at parts of the voluntary program. You've seen it on the Browns' social media, him in the weight room. So it's not like he abandoned the team the entire offseason. And I'll say, and I don't know if people might disagree with me on this, the fact that he gets to do what he's doing in Japan, which included going to some anime awards and walk the red carpet with two-time Olympic gold medalist, snowboarder Chloe Kim, like that's a cool reason to miss OTAs. So, and people might go, that shouldn't matter. I don't know. To me, it kind of matters, right? If you're going to this 70-minute practice versus you get kind of like a bucket list experience, I do take that into consideration. And the last point I want to make on this is he wasn't the only guy not there. Joe Bitonio hasn't gone to OTAs in years. And part of that's because he really knows his body well and he's 33 and he feels those reps. are not going to help him in the season. In fact, they will hurt him in the season as he's trying to protect his body. Again, he is in some of the meetings. He does some of the offseason program weightlifting. But he doesn't show up he doesn't go to OTA practice. He might be in the building, in fact, but he doesn't go to those practices. Jack Conklin wasn't there. David Njoku wasn't there. Greg Newsome II. So I know there's so much attention on Miles, and that's because he's the best player on the team. But I don't think it's that big a deal, and I think we got to keep in mind that he's not the only one out there.
Yeah, I guess, and I believe you wrote this, talking about Haslam said that he's hoping that Miles takes on more of a leadership role. And you mentioned that leadership part. Isn't that more of what is being debated here? Not necessarily what he could do on the field at OTAs, but just being around the guys and being there as a leader.
Yeah, and I think that's a legitimate point. I do. And I guess here's the issue. A guy like Denzel Ward, who made a commitment last year to show up for the entire offseason program, even though he doesn't need to be there. You can contrast that with Miles. So if it's great that Denzel Ward is there and he gets kudos for it, which he should and he does, and I believe he deserves to get those, then, well, if the other guy's not there, there's an imbalance. So I understand that argument. I just don't think it's that big a deal. And, Miles is a different cat. We've talked about it a billion times. He leads in a different way. He's not a super rah-rah guy. Yeah, so lead by example, show up, every practice matters. I get that. If you ask me, if I were the Browns, would I prefer that he was there? Yes. I just don't think it's a huge deal. And it is important to remember that it is voluntary. The players fight for the right not to have to be there in May. And if they want to exercise it, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it just seems like Stefanski hates that question. Like every time he gets asked, right? He's like, they're voluntary. They don't have to be here. Like right. Obviously he wishes they were, but it like you said, it is the way it goes. It's the rule.
Yeah, so. And I don't think he's really allowed to say anything else, Judge, because it is voluntary. So right? Yeah. No. If you start ripping these guys for not being there, there's probably grievances that could be filed.
Yeah, no question. Now, maybe more of a note is not Miles as much as Deontay Johnson, huh? He's not there.
Chud, it's like you're looking at my notes. I do think, and again, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite here, but I do think it's more noteworthy that Deontay Johnson wasn't there. Now, again, he is, at least through the Browns social media, you've seen that he's been at least at one part of the offseason program. So it's not like he's been a complete no-show. And I don't know if he was there on Tuesday. I don't know if he's there today. Or actually, they practice. We're doing this Thursday. They practice Friday. They go Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. So I don't want to make a sweeping conclusion that, oh my gosh, the guy hasn't been here. But let's assume he hasn't. Let's say because the one insight we get was on a Wednesday practice, he wasn't there. I feel like it's more important for him for several reasons. The first of which is he's coming off a disastrous season. He was traded twice, cut twice, and suspended once, all in last season. So I feel like he needs to reestablish himself as the player he used to be, who was a Pro Bowler once with Pittsburgh. I think he had 100 catches one year. Was targeted a ton when he played with Pittsburgh. Was a really good player for them. But there was something happened last year, and I don't know if he's the same guy or not, but he wasn't the same player. Went through all those things. I think he needs to reestablish himself. Kevin Stefanski wanted no part of that question when I asked him that on Wednesday. So I think that would be important for him to do that. Plus, the Browns need receivers, so they're really hoping that he can be that guy that he was and be a second or third receiver for them. And it's a new offense. He has played with Kenny Pickett before, so it's not all new quarterbacks, but the other three guys are new to Deontay Johnson. So that's why it's important for him to be here, whether it was one day or whatever. I think the Browns would like to see him be there more times than not. We'll see if he's there next week. I'm sure he'll be there at mandatory minicamp. But there's more reason for Deontay Johnson to be there, in my estimation, than for a guy like Myles Garrett.
All right, Scott, let's finish here with something I'm going to call, and boy, am I going out on a limb here, and no one has ever done this in the history of talk radio or anything.
Wow.
Scott, we're going to call this 4 downs. Right?
Love it.
Because I have 4 more things for you. But let's no, it doesn't necessarily have to be rapid fire, but we don't need to go on and on about it. So
Gotcha.
that's what 4 downs is. First down, what'd you think of Mason Graham?
Yeah, I think he showed up. We mentioned the 2 batted passes of Dylan Gabriel. It's hard to tell, the interior defensive line because of the rules of the OTA practices. But when I watched him in rookie minicamp, you saw quickness, and you saw that again yesterday.
Wow, that was quicker than I even thought.
You're at, Matt.
Yeah, I was not ready for that. All right, second down, DeJuan Jones. I saw you wrote some things about him.
I did. It's important that he's out there from a health standpoint because missed the end of his rookie year with an MCL, missed the end of his second year last year with a broken leg, and then he had off-season arthroscopic surgery to clean out that MCL. The fact that he's out there is a good sign. I thought he looked leaner, and I'm not great at that. I've been doing this for 20-some years. I'm not great at, oh, my God, this guy looks stronger this year, or this guy lost this weight. But he did look leaner to me, and for a guy that's 6'8", 374, that's what they list him as, that's always going to be a concern. And I thought he looked good. He was out there the first snap at left tackle with the first team, which is important, Chud, because they are counting on him to be the starting left tackle. We talked about offseason needs, and I thought left tackle was one of them because I didn't think you could count on DeJuan Jones coming off the injuries. He hasn't played a lot of left tackle in his career. They are counting on him to be their left tackle. It's important that he was out there. It's important that he looked good. So this doesn't mean he's going to be great week 1, but these are all good signs. And there's a few positions on this team where the Browns, in order for the Browns to be good and to exceed expectations, they were going to have to find answers from within, and there's none bigger than DeJuan Jones at left tackle.
All right, good input there. All right, third down, Scott. If anyone is not following you on X, Twitter, they should be, and I'm assuming most people listening here are, but you do a great job, and honestly, I mean that, not just saying it. I saw a video that you put out of a very interesting drill. What was that all about?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. It's, my guess, and I should ask somebody about it at some point. The receivers, as Chad O'Shea, the receivers coach, took the receivers over to this goalpost that was off the field during kind of a down time during practice. And he had them hold on to the post with one hand and catch the balls with the other hand. So it looks like a one-handed catch drill. And I've seen those drills before where the guys concentrate on one hand. So either this is, hey, there's no way you can use your second hand because you're holding the goalpost, or maybe it's to simulate a defender is kind of dragging you with the one hand and you have to use the other one. So it's just interesting that they did this drill, which I don't remember ever seeing before. And the other part of that is these guys are so good catching the ball one-handed. And I think I had a video of, I think Cedric Tillman might have bobbled one or dropped one. It's not easy to catch a ball one-handed. And I'm always stunned at the success rate of these receivers in the NFL catching the ball one-handed in practice.
You should try that with your golf game and just swing the club with one arm, one hand, and then when you go with two, it will translate better.
You know what? I think people use that as a drill, and I've been I've tried to do it. It's really hard. I'm not good at that.
All right, fourth down. Just maybe a guy that stood out to you that you haven't talked about yet. I know it's only OTAs, but this is an opportunity here for you to just kind of talk about someone that maybe people would be kind of surprised about.
Okay. I'm going a little chalk here. I'm going to go Quinshon Judkins, the rookie running back out of Ohio State. And the run game is hard to judge in the OTAs. But I'll tell you this. First of all, he's built like you'd want your NFL running back, or how I would want my NFL running back to be built. It's like 6 foot, two, whatever. I'm going to look it up as we talk here, but let's call it 220 until I find out if I'm right or not. But you see the quickness. So he's got this big, perfect NFL body, and he's also runs really quick. You see him do the footwork in the agility drills. And I remember from rookie minicamp, we might have talked about this, but there was an agility drill he did next to Dylan Sampson, the rookie out of Tennessee, who's 4 pounds or 4 inches shorter and lighter than Judkins is. And they tied, or Judkins won the drill just by a hair. My point is, he moves really well for a big body back. And, I think he's going to be your starter week 1. They had Jerome Ford take the first reps, and I think that's a, veteran over the rookie kind of thing, which I understand. And that's kind of traditional, coaches like to do that. But I just think he has a potential to, more than potential, to be your starter right away, but also to have a big impact. We know the Browns are going to go back to running the ball a bunch. At least that's the expectation. And I think he's going to be your workhorse guy. So they list him at 5'11", 221. So he's just built like you'd want him to be built. Moves his feet really well. I think he showed a little bit of a vision in a couple of drills yesterday. So I'm going to go with him as my answer.
All right. 4 downs, buddy. That was good. Do you have
work.
anything else? That's my list.
No, the only other thing that I wrote down here and I referred to it quickly before is, again, you can't read too much into these, but the defense won the day. And I think as we talk about the quarterbacks and the offense, sometimes it's hard when Jim Schwartz has his defense attacking and felt like a lot of pass rush, a lot of pressure especially in those 11-on-11 drills, because the other drills, there's no pass rush. So I thought in those, it was kind of harder for the offense to operate. I'm sure when Kevin Stefanski got back in the meeting room, they focused on some things. So I thought the defense won the day, which probably colors how you view some of the quarterback play, just because it wasn't as smooth as I think the offense would hope it would be.
All right. So we got OTAs again next week, and then mandatory mini camp. And then after that, break for the summer, and then training camp, right?
Yeah, if you're worried about your schedule, Chud, we're going to need you to pod at least the next 2 weeks. That much you have to lock that in the next 2 weeks. After that, there's an OTAs, because they're allowed to have 3 weeks of OTAs. There's another week after minicamp, and it remains to be seen if Kevin Stefanski is going to use that or just have like the rookies hang around. Minicamp usually ends it, but it is on the schedule. But I don't expect them to have full practices or the veterans here. So I expect minicamp to kind of be the end, quote unquote, end of the offseason. And then, there's a long break until training camp.
I took a little heat, Scott, from our schedule podcast that we didn't play the schedule game. That we didn't go down every single game.
Oh, boy.
I took some heat for that. So
if you want to buckle and do that next week, we can do that, Sean.
You want to play the schedule game?
We could do that.
We could play the schedule game.
All right.
All right. Well, hey, this was fun. I think some good insight there. And how's the golf game?
It's okay. It's okay. I didn't hit a great Monday, so that hangs with me for a little bit. But maybe I have a range stop before I play Saturday.
We tried to get out on Saturday, but the course where we were going to go, it was just too wet, no carts.
Really?
And, so we just we bailed on it. But I would like to get out there, at some point. But
I actually played Saturday, and I was stunned. Well, shout out to Big Met in the Metro Parks. We had an early tee time, and I was stunned that it wasn't more wet. Like it was cart path only, but it was totally playable. Like my feet weren't drenched. I was so glad. We thought about canceling, and we wound up playing, and I was so glad we did. It was in phenomenal shape.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well,
so there you have it.
That makes for a fun weekend for sure.
Yep.
So hey, Scott, you got to live up the next let's see, June, July, I guess 2 months.
Yeah, to get on my golfing.
Well, I mean, you can still golf in August, but you're a little bit busy.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I feel the clock ticking too, Chud. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, no question.
It's like Marissa Tomei and my cousin Vinny. She feels her biological clock ticking. I feel my golf clock ticking.
Oh, that's such a good movie.
It is.
Oh my gosh. All right.
All right, Chud.
Yeah, this was fun, and so we'll talk again next week, I guess.
Yes, we will. All right. Yeah, I think we're out there Wednesday, so we'll do end of the week next week. I appreciate it as always, Chud. Thanks everybody for listening. This has been another episode of the Zone Coverage Podcast, and you can read all my work at brownzone.com. Thanks.